everyone, and welcome back to The Girl with the Shovel. Today we are going to talk about the best ferns to grow indoors. So ferns typically are a little fussy indoors, and I think that comes back to a few different problems. First is that indoors we don't usually have the humidity levels that ferns typically like. And second, I think that a lot of us have been sold the Boston fern, okay? Don't be a hater. If you have Boston ferns growing indoors and they're working for you, then congratulations, good job. I don't think that this is the story for most of us. I think that you always see these Boston ferns being sold. Sometimes the Kimberly Queen, and I found that it acts kind of in a similar way. They need constant moisture, constant humidity, or they drop leaves everywhere and they just die, especially over the winter time when our homes get less humid. Anyways, big mess. So today I wanted to provide a few different ferns, if you still love the look for them, that might actually do better indoors in your situation. So the first fern I wanted to recommend is the Maidenhair Fern. Now these ferns are usually a little smaller. They have gorgeous tiny little leaves. And I have personally found success with them when I put them in a self-watering pot. Make sure that it stays wet, the soil stays moist, and then also I like to give it plenty of light, not direct sunlight because that can also dry it out, but I put a grow light over it and it's actually done pretty well for me. So try out a Maidenhair Fern. My second fern for indoors is the bird's nest fern. Now this fern may look a little bit different. It is more circular in its leaf shape. They kind of go around in a little crown. That's why they call it the bird's nest fern. I heard the story, correct me if you know better, I heard the story that birds will actually nest in these, okay, where they're from. So let me know in the comments below if you know if that is a fact or not. That's just something that I've heard, but they actually do pretty well indoors. I found that they aren't super picky, not nearly as much as the typical Boston ferns. They don't need as much humidity. And that is one good thing that we have. I've actually killed one in the past, my first one ever, by overwatering. So make sure that you let them dry out in between waters, but also that you don't give it too bright of light, while also, just like your Maidenhair Fern, giving it really good indirect light, and maybe even considering a grow light for it. My third indoor fern for you today is the rabbit's foot fern. Now, I personally love my rabbit foot fern. It is so gorgeous, and the little roots coming out, how they're like so fluffy looking. It looks like so creepy in like an adorable creepy way, you know, like those little like stuffed monster stuffies that kids have nowadays. Anyways, that's it for me for the rabbit foot fern. It is just gorgeous, nice and soft on the top with the little roots that kind of come out. Just make sure that this, once again, like the Maidenhair Fern, stays more on the moist side, or else you're going to start seeing some brown fronds. But once again, it's pretty nice in that it will start showing you the signs, like some of the fronds will start to get brown before it just completely dies, like some of your other ferns. So it is definitely a little more forgiving. It shows you the signs a little more ahead of time, saying, okay, I'm ready for more water. So this is definitely on my list of ferns that do well indoors. Now, my next fern, I personally haven't mastered yet, but it's on my list. I believe this year I would like to really get in on the plant care for this one, is the Staghorn Fern. Okay, so the care requirements for the Staghorn Fern are very different from your typical ferns. Okay, first off, they don't typically grow in soil. They need to be mounted and have some sphagnum moss in there so for the mounting. So this has its own unique care requirements, but I've heard that once you learn the requirements for the Staghorn Fern, then it is actually pretty easy to grow indoors. So it's on my list. You let me know if you found that as well, or if it's one that you would like to learn about more. And I am going to get on that. And then one that I am just loving right now is the Kangaroo Paw Fern. Okay, now I don't usually find these in large pots for sale. Once again, most of the ferns that you find for sale in these large nursery pots are going to be your Boston ferns and your Kimberly Queen ferns, which do great in humid environments outdoors. But the Kimberly Paw Fern I usually find in small little 4-inch pots that are usually sold in like fairy garden plants. Okay, so really, really tiny because they have these gorgeous little small leaves that come out when they're first growing. But then as they get bigger, they get these larger trident-shaped leaves, and I just find them so pretty. They have done very well for me indoors. I've tested and tried them out. I've tried drying them out a little bit more, keeping them a little more moist, and they seem to really roll with the punches. They love it in just under my grow light, if that helps. I wouldn't, once again, put it in direct sunlight. Most ferns usually don't like direct sunlight. They usually grow in understories of the forest. So make sure that you don't just blast these with direct sunlight, okay? Indirect light is best. But the Kangaroo Paw Fern is definitely one that I would recommend if you're starting out or if you want a fern that isn't as fussy as some of the others. And then my last indoor fern for plant parents is actually technically not a fern, but I had to include this one because I really like this one and it gives that kind of fern effect, that fern look, and it is called the Asparagus Fern. Okay, technically it's not a fern because it doesn't produce spores and it is more related to the asparagus family, but this plant gives you the softest texture ever, right? It is so soft and so light. The leaves are tiny little needles. So sometimes when you have leaves that fall off of your ferns, you see big little spots everywhere. This one just has a nice little gentle spray of needles if it gets dried out. I personally have mine in a bathroom with a north-facing window where it can get some good indirect light as well as a lot of humidity from that bathroom. But it does really well. It is very easy to take care of. Mine personally hasn't had any issues yet. Just make sure that it stays moist, but also it has dried out a few times and it's been super forgiving. So the only thing I would say about this one is it does have little thorns on them as it gets bigger especially. So if you want this, just make sure that it's placed somewhere that is not right next to your walkway so that people don't scrape themselves, and wear gloves when you're trimming it back because I've also heard they just take over and can get huge, which is gorgeous. It's what we want because a lot of these indoor ferns don't do well. So you don't hear many stories of them getting that big. So that's definitely a good sign. I personally love my asparagus fern. It is so cloud-like. That's kind of how I see it. It's just light and airy and looks so gorgeous. And it gives you that fern effect, even though technically it's not a fern. So that is it for my list of the best indoor ferns. I hope that this gave you some great inspiration, and let me know in the comments below if you are going to get one of these to add to your collection this year. I personally love all of them, and this year I'm going to work on that Staghorn Fern, like I said, because everyone says that they're great. So wish me luck. It's going to be great. Let me know in the comments below again which one you are going to add. And then if you have any sad looking houseplants, feel free to download the free guide, my plant rescue kit. It has a lot of great information on what to do when your plant isn't looking the greatest. And then if you like this video, go ahead and hit the thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss any future houseplant tips and cool little lists like this one about what does well indoors. Okay, have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.